Hello and welcome to Wineskins, a program that features the lives of the saints and reflections on the Sunday readings, along with information on a variety of topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm Father Jim Corda. Our program is brought to you through the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. Our interview segment today will feature Jim Meerhut on Coaching to Connect. It is part 2 of our 3-part series called Spotlight. We will also get a glimpse into the life and times of Saints Cyril and Methodius, along with reflections on the readings for this 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time. That and more on Wineskins. Pro-life issues are very important to the life of the Church and the entire human population. To share some pertinent topic with us is Dave Schmidt, the Director of the Office of Marriage and Pro-Life for the Diocese of Youngstown.
Today is World Marriage Day. World Marriage Day occurs each year on the 2nd Sunday of February, obviously intended to occur near the celebration of St. Valentine's Day. The day was originally called We Believe in Marriage Day and started in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in 1981. And was quickly adopted by Worldwide Marriage Encounter, who is the chief promoter of World Marriage Day. Many of our Catholic parishes celebrate World Marriage Day, which I think is very fitting since I know of no institution on the face of the earth that has more to say about marriage than does the Catholic Church. For about 100 years now, popes, bishops, and other leaders in the Church have been speaking out on the importance of marriage and the various aspects of it. In 1930, Pope Pius IX wrote an encyclical letter entitled Casti Connubii on Christian marriage. In the 1960s, the Second Vatican Council's chief documents, Lumen Gentium and Gaudium et Spes, had much to say about marriage and family life. Intimacy in marriage was a concern of Pope Paul VI when he wrote Humanae Vitae on human life. Pope John Paul II became known as the Pope of Marriage and Family Life, reflecting on marriage extensively in what was to become known as his Theology of the Body, plus in official documents such as his Apostolic Exhortation Familiaris Consortio on the family, and in his Letter to Families. In his encyclical letter Deus Caritas Est, God is Love, Pope Benedict XVI reflected on love and marriage. And our current Holy Father, Pope Francis, called 2 synods of bishops to discuss marriage and family life, which led up to the publication this past spring of his apostolic exhortation, Amoris Laetitia, the Joy of Love. In Amoris Laetitia, Pope Francis beautifully reflects on the sacramental nature of marriage. He reminds us that the sacrament of marriage is not a social convention, an empty ritual, or merely the outward sign of a commitment. The sacrament is a gift given for the sanctification and salvation of the spouses. He goes on to say that, in accepting each other, and with Christ's grace, the couple promise each other total self-giving, faithfulness, and openness to life. The sacrament is not a thing or a power, for in it Christ himself now encounters Christian spouses. He dwells with them, gives them the strength to take up their crosses and to follow him, to rise again when after they have fallen, to forgive one another, to bear one another's burdens. In a world where many are frightened by the commitment of marriage, Pope Francis beautifully reminds us that the indissolubility of marriage should not be viewed as a yoke imposed on humanity, but as a gift granted to those who are joined in marriage. God's indulgent love always accompanies our human journey through grace. It heals and transforms hardened hearts, leads them back to the beginning through the way of the cross. Elaborating further, the Pope says, Christ the Lord makes himself present to the Christian spouses in the sacrament of marriage and remains with them. In the Incarnation, he assumes human love, purifies it, and brings it to fulfillment. By his Spirit, he gives spouses the capacity to live that love, permeating every part of their lives in faith, hope, and charity. such as what we celebrate on World Marriage Day today. This most recent document of Pope Francis's has a local connection. Our own Bishop George Murray, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown, served on the Ordinary Synod of Bishops in October of 2015, who met with Pope Francis in Rome and contributed insights that were incorporated into the Pope's apostolic exhortation, Amoris Laetitia. Bishop Murray was one of only 8 bishops from the United States who attended that synod. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow night Bishop Murray is giving a presentation based on Amoris Laetitia entitled The Vital Role of the Family in Church and Society. All are invited to hear Bishop Murray speak on this important topic tomorrow evening, Monday, February 13th, at 7 p.m. in the St. Michael Parish Hall in Canfield. For details, call the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at 330-744-8451. For Wineskins, this is Dave Schmidt.
Saints Cyril and Methodius were brothers. To tell us more is Rich Matusi. He is from St. Joseph Church in Austintown and Cardinal Mooney High School.
These two saints were proclaimed co-patrons of Europe, together with St. Benedict, by St. John Paul II on December 31st, 1980. The feast itself is on the date of the death of Cyril, the blood brother of Methodius. They were born in Thessalonica, Greece, and became apostles to the Slavic nations of Moravia, Bohemia, and Bulgaria. Their feast has been celebrated universally in the Church since 1880. Saint Cyril was ordained a priest in Constantinople and taught philosophy there. His older brother, Methodius, after being governor of a Slavic province, became a monk. In 862, the Prince of Moravia asked for missionaries who would speak the language of his country. The two brothers, Cyril and Methodius, were selected for the task. They differed greatly from the Latin Rite missionaries from Germany because they were able to adapt to the people they were evangelizing. For example, they created the Slavonic alphabet, and they translated the Bible and the liturgy into the Slavic language. Hence, the characters were called Cyrillic. Cyril died in the year 869 and is buried in the Basilica of St. Clement in Rome. After being ordained a bishop, Methodius returned to the East as papal legate to the Slav nations. During the last 4 years of his life, he dedicated himself to the translation of the Bible and other work into Slavonic. He died in the year 885, and the funeral liturgy was conducted in Greek, Latin, and Slavonic rites. The first part of the opening prayer of the Mass recalls the great merit of the two brothers as missionaries who brought the light of the gospel to the Slavic nations. Those countries rightly considered Cyril and Methodius as their fathers in the Christian faith. By introducing new languages into the liturgy of the Church, they revived the prodigy of the early Church. The two missionaries not only made the Church resplendent by their work of evangelization, but they are models for the adaptation of the faith to various cultures. They understood the points of reference to the culture of the people, and they knew how to promote unity without imposing rigid uniformity. Because they laid the foundation for a truly Christian popular culture, Cyril and Methodius can also serve as reliable guides in the ecumenical movement. The prayer after communion invokes the Father of all nations who, through the one bread and the one Spirit, has made us companions and heirs of the eternal banquet. When then asked that he will grant that all his children, united in the same faith, will be in full agreement in promoting justice and peace. All cultures of the Slavic nations owe their beginnings and development to Saints Cyril and Methodius. Whether it was the creation of their alphabet or the translation of the liturgical books into the language of the people, ultimately, the work of these two co-patrons of Europe was an outstanding contribution to the common Christian foundation of Europe. For Wineskins, I am Rich Matusi.
Talking with Jim Meerhut, and we ended by talking about living life in reverse and how detrimental that really is. What are some of the tools that you utilize to get people to not only set goals for themselves, but to keep moving in a forward motion?
One tool I use is called the Wheel of Spiritual Well-Being. It's actually a wheel on a piece of paper that people look at, and it's divided into segments. And the segments represent the various aspects of a person's life. And so one way that we try to get at that unmet need thing that we talked about in the first segment is to have people evaluate their levels of satisfaction in all of these different areas of their life. And when people really sit and reflect on their satisfaction levels with, say, their marriage or their physical dwelling, their career, extended family, friends, social life, exercise, health, all that stuff, those evaluations of satisfaction give us a strong indicator of where some of those unmet needs would be. And then we can explore that and get that kind of all balanced out. And following that, then we start moving into discussions of values.
Now, do you, in your experience, find people that have a hard time seeing good and seeing themselves in good places, as opposed to like, oh, everything's wonderful, how can I continue to move on? Is it more of the other?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You mean people like tending toward the negative?
Yes. Are we like so dissatisfied sometimes with who we are and what we're doing that we really need to find something more, find the meaning of it all, I guess?
Yeah. People can get sort of, it's kind of like spinning your wheels. You know, when you get locked into the cyclical reflection on what's wrong with my life and the things that are not going well, that can really bog a person down. And again, that's one of the great insights of psychology, that positive psychology is more about, well, let's shift the focus. Let's reframe your life and start looking for the strengths. You know, what are your gifts? What are your strengths? What's going well? What do you do well? What are your deepest held values? These are the things that create the energy for forward movement.
You use that word energy. You know, my experience oftentimes of people is that they kind of lack energy. And I even find myself sometimes like you get kind of spent on something that is more ancillary than important. And I would imagine part of the process is to focus on what's really important. And how difficult is that sometimes to focus on what's important?
Yeah, you know, the energy thing is an important indicator for coaching. When we're in a coaching conversation with a person, most of it actually happens on the phone. It's another distinction from counseling. I have clients all over the world, and so we do the coaching by phone. And so one of the key parts of being a coach is being a very deep listener. And so as I'm talking to a person, I'm listening for energy shifts in the conversation. And when I sense a really significant upward swing in energy, then that's an indicator of, you know, we've landed on something that could be fuel for forward movement for this person. So that's a really important part of it.
Let's talk about spirituality. How does spirituality come into play? Let's face it, there are some people that may feel themselves not being religious, but maybe spiritual. Or in your experience, do you have people that are neither?
Yes, I do. I have people who are very religious, people who consider themselves spiritual, not religious, and then I also have people who are just completely disconnected from the church. But yet, in my opinion, they're still on a spiritual journey. Spirituality, as I understand it, is just basically faith in action. You know, people living out their deepest held convictions and values. And so in coaching, the way we get to the spiritual level is simply to keep diving deeper and deeper into what's most important to that person, and then that gets us connected with their spiritual center.
When you do this process with people, how much does family come into play? You know, sometimes, at least my experience, sometimes family has been part of the problem. You know, and I'm sure psychiatrists and psychologists delve deeper into that. But what are some of the things that you do where family is concerned? Yeah,
family is always an overriding theme in coaching. Whether I'm coaching in business or doing a church team or an individual or a couple, family is always a factor. For those family problems, the things that people inherit from their families that are difficult, we have a word in coaching for that. We call them gremlins. And gremlins are those little things that pop up in a person's life that get in the way of them really accomplishing what they want to accomplish. And typically, they are rooted in family experiences. They're not always, but typically rooted in family experiences, and you can trace them pretty much to the first 10 years of a person's life. So we'll go back and explore a little bit of that and surface the gremlins, and then we just try to replace them with ways of thinking, ways of behaving that will move them toward their goals and help them overcome the gremlin that can be a real blocker.
In your experience, why is it important for people to look ahead and to set goals? There are some people that kind of live life one day at a time, which is okay, and in certain circumstances, that's enough. Mm-hmm. But why is it important to kind of look a little more down the road? Because things may happen that cause us to need to look further down the road. And what do you say to those people that can't do that? Can everyone do that?
Yeah, I think that's a very, unique human quality, is that we just have that ability to imagine, to vision, to hope. I think that our faith is really based upon that. We have Jesus, I think, saw this very clear vision of the potential of the human experience that is not currently present. It's somewhere in the future. So the more that we look to that and try to describe that and get excited about it, that sort of pulls us along to a place that's more deeply joyful and peaceful.
The word that comes to mind is the eschatology. It's like
Sure.
Here, but it's not here.
Exactly.
And so that's, if we live out of sense of that, there's something that's always drawing us forward and onward. Can you name that for people?
Something that's drawing us forward and onward. Well, in coaching, we simply call it their vision. And I think that that's true for individual persons as it is for businesses and organizations. Oftentimes people distinguish between vision and mission, right? Mission is simply what you're doing now that helps to get you to where you want to be. But the vision is that piece that is not yet. It's the piece that describes what you could be at your very best, but you're currently not there. So it's always out in front of you. And no one ever accomplishes their vision, right? If you accomplish your vision, then it's not a vision anymore. It necessarily, by definition, is somewhere out in the future. And so as you get closer to it, you always have to refine it and make it even more imaginative and bigger and more wondrous.
For more information on that topic and other related issues, and to listen to Wineskins, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doy.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I am Marino.
Je suis Marino.
I am Marino.
I believe that we are all connected to each other, and that it is the gift of compassion that unites us and makes us one. It doesn't matter what language, culture, or tradition we come from. We can share compassion wherever we are.
Marino, an American Catholic organization of priests and brothers, has been reaching out to those in need for nearly 100 years in 26 countries throughout the world. Marino dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, and with your help, they can do more. Missioners, workers, volunteers, supporters, we are all Marino.
I am Marino.
Yo soy Marino.
I'm Father Mike, and I am Marino.
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 Christopher Minutes. Thoughts on making every day count. Here's Monsignor Jim Lisanti.
The prayer of St. Francis of Assisi is a valuable guide to emotional and spiritual well-being. I'd like to share these immortal words with you now. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, for it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. I'm Monsignor Jim Lisanti.
33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
Our song today is from the CD entitled The Lord's is the Earth. It is by Reno Angelini.
As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water.
Like the deer that longs for running streams, athirst is my soul for the living God. When shall I behold God's face?
As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water.
My tears are my food day after day, as they say to me day after day. Where is your God?
As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water.
In the daylight, God sends faithful love. Throughout the night, the song inspires a prayer to God, the living God.
As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water.
Bring us to your dwelling place. We go up to the altar of God to give God thanks upon the heart.
As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water, so my soul longs for you, my Lord. As the deer longs for running water.
Our scripture reflection for this sixth Sunday in Ordinary Time will be done by Deacon Mike Kajancic. He is from St. Charles Church in Boardman.
How many of you own a cow? How many would want to own one? My wife would. She would like the milk and the cheese and the help keeping the grass short. Now, if our neighbor Betty across the street wanted to own a cow, she could have one. But we couldn't, not on our side, according to the original legal land contract for our neighborhood. I love reading about some of the laws that we humans have come up with. In Ohio, it's illegal to hunt for whales on Sunday or to get a fish drunk. In Cleveland, you can't catch a mouse without having a hunting license. And in Youngstown, it's illegal to run out of gas. Then there's the other side, the over-enforcement of some laws. A young girl visited by a local health authority and has to close her front yard lemonade stand because she doesn't have the proper license. Sometimes it seems like we've lost common sense with regards to living out the law. Even more frightening, I think we've lost a sense of God in just plain living. The words in today's gospel that Jesus addresses are to those living under the influence of the law. At that time, the law meant the 10 Commandments, as well as the 5 books of Moses, and the over 600 man-made laws to live out the 10 laws that came from God. All these extra laws placed burdens on people God never intended, and that became a problem. They began concentrating on every letter of the law, making sure that every I was dotted and every T was crossed. But they were ignoring the spirit of the law. Jesus says it's time to move beyond mere external observance to something new, a law that is lived within the heart. The law was no longer to be a long list of rules, regulations, and details, but focus on the heart, on the human purpose. Living the law means going where He leads us. Just as His heart led Him, our heart is to lead us. St. Paul, in the second reading, gives the ultimate explanation of Jesus' teaching. Love is the fulfillment of the law. Living out the law is harder to live than we think. We know the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," and we don't. But have you ever talked behind someone's back, assassinating their character? Another commandment says we are not to covet our neighbor's wife or goods. And have we ever used others? Got jealous when they were given what we think we deserve? We believe in justice for all. But do we always look for the best bargain without thinking of the working conditions under which that product was made? You see, it's not easy to make love the fulfillment of the law, even though the first reading from the book of Sirach tells us we have the power to choose to do so, if we choose to trust in God. The world seems so against the law of love being the guiding principle. The fact is, we would never succeed if we do it alone. But we don't have to do alone. We always have the help of God, God's grace, in doing so, if we choose to use it and to live the law of love. This law is not an activity we must do, not a hurdle we have to jump if we want to get to heaven. It's not just an abstract philosophical concept that each of us seeks. It is a reality that is lived among us, and we feel it in experience every time we receive the Eucharist. Love, as Jesus preached and practiced it for us, is grace, a way of life we choose to live, a law we should all obey. For Wineskins, I'm Deacon Mike Kojancic.
Jesus is always challenging His church to be in a right relationship with God and with others. Jesus forbids anger and hatred and division in His church and among its members. If we choose, we can keep the Lord's commandments and they will save us. If we trust God, we will live. How is the Spirit of God calling you to live and to trust? Wineskins is made possible by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. Wineskins is produced by CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. I'm Father Jim Corda, thanking you for being with us. Have a blessed Sunday, and may God be with you.